اخباركم يا شباب عاملين ايه؟ ان شاء الله النهارده نشتغل في تشابتر 12، اخر تشابتر موجود في Great Expectations. اخر حاجه وصلنا لها لما اتقبض على بروفيس زي ما انتم شايفين في الصوره اللي قدامكم. هنشوف طبعا ايه اللي حصل لبروفيس دلوقتي مع بعض. نبدا في chapter 12. Provis suddenly jumped up and leapt into the police officer's boat. نط بسرعه بروفيس على المركب بتاع البوليس اوفيسر ومسك كامبيسن and pulled him to his feet. ومسك كده جامد كامبيسن. The crew of the steamer couldn't stop the ship and it passed closely by us moments later. والطاقم بتاع الباخرة ما قدروش يوقفوا السفينة بتاعتهم وعدوا قريب مننا. A large wave swept over us. وفي موجة كبيرة جدا عدت علينا. There were shouts as our boat filled up with water and then began to sink. المركب بتاعنا بدأ يغرق. I was struggling to swim. كنت بكافح مش عارف أعوم and was pulled out of the river by the police officers. والحمد لله لحقوني police officers. Herbert and Startup had already been rescued. وتم خلاص إنقاذ Herbert و Startup. But Provis and Compeyson were missing. هما الاتنين ما كانوش لاقيينهم. Then we saw a dark shape in the water. It was Provis. He had been hit on the head by the steamer as it passed by. الباخرة وهي بتعدي خبطت راس Provis. We pulled him into the boat too, and I sat with him. Campison didn't come back up. ما طلعش Campison من المية. Provis had struggled with him under the water and pushed him away. يعني كانت في خناقة شديدة بين Provis وكامبيسين وبروفيس قدر يبعده. He didn't see what happened to him after that. وما عرفناش ايه اللي حصل لكامبيسين بعد كده. Provis lay in the bottom of the boat and I held his hand. Provis طبعا كان موجود على المركب وانا كنت ماسك ايده. He had been so kind to me. كان طيب معي. I looked at him now and felt only pity. He had left Australia to return to England for me. هو ساب أستراليا ورجع عشان خاطري and now he might have to pay with his life وحياته كانت الثمن. You can't become a gentleman without me, my boy, Provis said weakly. Provis بيقول لي أنت ممكن تبقى gentleman بدوني. I will not leave you, I replied. أنا مش هسيبك. Provis was taken to the prison hospital. أخذوا Provis للمستشفى where I visited him every day. I couldn't leave him now, but my debts were growing. مش قادر أسيبه لكن الديون كانت بتكتر عليا. Herbert had a new job in Egypt. And Mr. Clarriker had asked if I would also like to work for him there. يعني مستر كلاركر كمان عرض علي قال لي تحب تشتغل معايا برضه هناك في مصر. He had agreed to give me some time to consider his offer. قال لي ماشي أنا هديك شوية وقت عشان تفكر. When Provis appeared in court, he was found guilty. ولما راح بروفيس المحكمة اتحاكم يعني أثبت إن هو مذنب. To my horror, he and 32 other criminals were all given life sentences at once. هو كمان 32 واحد من المجرمين اتحكم عليهم بالحكم مؤبد أو مدى الحياة. Some were crying, but Provis was calm. He knew that this might happen. يعني بروفيس كان هادي، كان عارف إن ده هيحصل. I visited Provis in the prison hospital for one last time. He was very weak. رحت زرت بروفيس لآخر مرة وكان ضعيف وكانت حالته صعبة. كان تعبان. Provis, I said, your daughter is still alive. She is very beautiful and I love her. عرفوا إن ستيلا لسه عايشة وهو بيحبها. Provis looked at me affectionately. Then his hold on my hand became weaker and he died. يعني أول ما عرف طبعا حاجة زي كده حس بدهشة شوية وبص البيب طبعا بعطف كده، نظرة عطف وحب، وبعد كده مات. I was very tired and worried about my debts. أنا كنت قلقان خالص على الديون بتاعتي. Soon I became very ill and I didn't know what day or what time it was. The illness gave me strange dreams. المرض خلاه يحلم أحلام غريبة. سمع أصوات بتتكلم معاه. Frightening memories of the fire at Miss Havisham's house came back to me. One morning, however, I opened my eyes and saw Joe. في يوم من الأيام كده في الصبح فتح عينه لقى جو جنبه. He had been looking after me like a child for weeks. He was so kind. يعني برضه جو ما نسيش بيب وكان واقف معاه وكان طيب معاه كالعادة. When I was feeling better, Joe had some news for me. لما اتحسنت جو كان عنده أخبار ليا. Miss Havisham had recently died. وقال لي إن Miss Havisham ماتت, leaving most of her money to Stella. She had also left some money to Mr. Matthew Pocket. يعني سابت معظم فلوسها لستيلا وكمان سابت فلوس لماثيو Pocket because I had told her she should help him. I was very pleased to hear that I had been able to help him. يعني كنت مبسوط إن أنا قدرت أساعده، إن هو خلى طبعا مس هافشم تسيب له فلوس. I also found out that Orlick was in prison. وعرفت إن أورليك اتسجن. With some other men, he had broken into Uncle Pumpachuk's house and tried to rob him. هو ومساعدة ناس تاني مجرمين حاولوا يسرقوا بيت مستر Pumpachuk. But Uncle Pumpachuk had recognized him. لكن Uncle Pumpachuk عرفه. Joe continued to work after me and I became stronger and healthier each day. كل يوم ببقى أحسن من اللي قبله. One morning I was surprised to find that Joe had gone. في يوم من الأيام اندهش لما ملقاش جو جنبه, but he had left a letter for me. كان سايب لي جواب. It said that he had paid all my debts, so now I wouldn't go to prison. دفع كل ديوني وخلاص مش هتسجن. The letter was signed, your best friend always, Joe. وماضي في الآخر كاتب يعني صديقك الدائم جو. I know then that I must go back to the blacksmith very soon to thank him. أنا عارف إن أنا لازم أروح البلاك سميث المكان اللي موجود فيه. طبعا أنا حاطط apostrophe s عشان بيعمل reference للمكان نفسه علشان يشكر جو. I also feel that I must see Betty. كمان لازم أشوف Betty. I wanted to tell her how sorry I was that I had hurt her in the past and I hope now that she might marry me. حس بالأسى وعايز يعني يعتذر لها وعايز يتجوزها. It was a beautiful summer day when I returned to the blacksmith. Nobody was in the house when I arrived, but after a few minutes I saw Joe and Betty together in the street. يعني الجو كان جميل. رجع عند البيت بتاع مستر جو, ما كانش حد موجود في البيت, لكن بعدها شاف جو وبيدي مع بعض في الشارع. They were delighted to see me and Betty began to cry. وبيدي بدأت تعيط. It's my wedding day, Pip, Betty said happily. بتقول له ده يوم فرحي. Joe and I have just got married. يبقى كده بيدي اتجوزت جو. فجأة كبيرة جدا. They welcomed me back to the blacksmith and although the news surprised me, I was glad that I had never told Joe that I hoped to marry Betty. طبعا هم رحبوا بيا وانا اتفاجئت, لكن الحمد لله يعني اشكر ربنا ان انا ما قلتش لجو ان انا كنت نفسي اتجوز بيتي. You have the best husband in the world, Betty, I said. انت اتجوزتي احسن واحد في العالم. And Joe, you have the best wife. وانت كمان يا جو اتجوزت احسن واحدة. I asked them to forgive me. They both told me they would, but they also said there was nothing to forgive. قلت لهم معلش سامحوني. قالوا مفيش حاجة حصلت يعني خلاص. It was time for me to leave. Within a few weeks I had sold everything I had in London. في خلال أسابيع بعت كل حاجة عندي في لندن. And I traveled to Egypt to work for Mr. Clarriker. After some years there, Herbert and I both became managers in Mr. Clarriker's business. الدنيا طبعا لعبت معاهم, وهو وهربرت أصبحوا هم المانجرز المديرين في البيزنس بتاع مستر كلاريكر. 11 years passed before I saw Joe and Betty again. They were very happy at the blacksmith. يعني عدت 11 سنة قبل ما يشوف بيدي وجو مرة تاني. كانوا مبسوطين طبعا في البيت بتاع جو and had two children. كان عندهم طفلين, a little boy and a little girl. Joe told me that his son was called Pip. سموا ابنهم Pip after me. نسبة ليا. He and Betty welcomed me warmly and it felt as though I had never been away. رحبوا بيا جامد وحسيت ان انا عمري ما كنت بعيد عنهم. What kind people they are, I said to myself. يعني الناس دول طيبين جدا. I am so lucky to know such a good people. ده أنا محظوظ. That night I went to the place where Miss Havisham's house used to be. راح للمكان اللي كانت عايشة فيه Miss Havisham. It was no longer there. Instead, I found a large untidy garden. وجد جنينة كبيرة untidy. As I walked in this strange place with the stars shining brightly above me, I thought of Stella. وهو بيتمشى في الجاردن دي فكر فين في ستيلا مرة تاني. She had been very unhappy with Bentley Drummel. هي كانت حزينة, ما كانتش مبسوطة مع بنتلي درامل اللي اتجوزته. He had been cruel to her and so she felt she had no choice but to leave